Which occupations have hands down the worst influence on mental health? My dad is an oncologist. He handles it well, but it has to be up there. Every time you meet a new patient, it's at one of the worst, if not the worst, periods of their life. And it's up to you to break it to them or their family whether the toxic treatment you have been providing is working, or if they should give up hope and get their affairs in order. On top of that, you have them attending appointments, telling you the type of toll the disease is having on their marriage. So many individuals walk away from their cherished spouse of 30 years rather than help them through this, not to mention their money. I am still so tremendously thankful to the doctor who helped my father comprehend he was dying. My dad was relentlessly cheerful, pious, and not terribly intelligent. Sorry, Dad. When his previous oncologist attempted to tell him he was dying, he refused to give up hope. It was after he was hospitalized due to complications that a resident oncologist at the hospital came and sat with him for a good long time, and ultimately got him to see that it was time to let go of the notion he may get well. I can't imagine what it does to a person to sit and make sure that someone realizes there is no hope left in the world for them. I'm so thankful folks like that exist, but it absolutely couldn't be me. Veterinarians have among of the highest rates of taking their own lives of any other occupations. I'm going with that. My vet grieved with me as we put my pet to death. I was touched, but it was a bit of a surprise considering I was reportedly the second euthanasia appointment of the day. What I hear from veterinarians is that the people are the worst aspect of the job, witnessing signs of neglect or abuse, customers refusing to pay for essential medical procedures, etc. Watching animals suffering is terrible enough, but knowing you or the owner could do something about it but can't or won't has to be awful. First responders will ultimately witness a person die directly in front of them. More than likely undoubtedly have seen others die, as well as lots of already dead brains on BS, etc. None of it was quite as horrible as responding to a dying child. Then having to stand about while EMS is going through the motions for the sake of the parents. Just for clarity, no judgment here. Just making sure I understand you right. You're saying sometimes EMTs know an infant has died or is in the process of dying, and there's nothing the EMTs can do, so they go through the motions or perform life-saving measures, just so the parents see the EMTs tried something, rather than just state the inevitable. The child has died, or is going to die. With youngsters particularly, you have to attempt interventions. I am an ER nurse and I had a small kid, less than 2 years old, who drowned and was presumed to have been in the pool for roughly 2 hours. The infant was frigid as ice, but we still had to do all the things. The FBI evidence sifters and child cases, weeks of freeze-framing children's faces during abuse recordings and comparing it to databases to identify the youngsters against other footage, missing children, etc., then putting it all in a chronology for prosecutors. Edit to add. They have to watch these movies looping back over and over to capture audio, names, locations, numbers, background sounds, and any other evidence that could tie individuals to actions or cases to other instances. I know someone whose husband worked in that region. Apparently they managed to spend a lot of time on the job maintaining their mental health. Like they have days when they'll do outdoor sports and stuff. Hopefully it helps them since that's a terrible profession. Mine doesn't warrant time 10. However, I worked at a payday loan shop for a few months. If it didn't seem like legally working for the devil, I don't know what does. My mom used to work for one of these businesses. She was fired for turning individuals away who definitely wouldn't be able to pay them back. That's their hidden cap. No one is able to pay them back. You simply keep renewing the loan till you lose your home. There were simply incredibly terrible instances of it that she used to discuss. It's horrible how many of these exist in the depressed areas. Pretty sure they was legislated out of the region not long after she got dismissed. Crime scene cleanup. Entire families, murders, etc. Seeing dead kids would ruin me. The smells, bodies turned to soup, brains splattered, blood, lots of blood, fecal matter, pets taking a chomp because they haven't been fed, having to pull all carpet pad and scrubbing subfloors, extracting body juices, high probability of bioillnesses, SL biohazards, blood, SL airborne pathogens. 100% will affect any sane person. I recall there was a man who did it for a job and would publish images and write-ups on his personal blog back in the early 2000s. I'll never forget the one when he rushed to the house of an elderly guy who had a heart attack and died while having a bath. The guy resided in a hut in the woods. and the water was heated with gas burners which had been kept on for days or weeks until his remains were located. The cleaning person reported that he and the local police attempted to remove the corpse out of the water, but his leg bones ripped straight out of skin as the elderly man had virtually been transformed to soup after being in hot water for so long. They ended up sweeping his remains out with buckets. I have a pal who works with CPS. You wouldn't believe the amount of times she's attempted to have a kid removed out of a brutally abusive home, clear physical proof of SA, etc. But the case falls through because the police won't offer a detective who is excellent with children. Then the youngster won't repeat charges for official testimony. It's gotta be up there with first responders. My brother worked with CPS as a caseworker for approximately 8 years, which is around 6 years longer than individuals generally last. He disclosed some about his work and talks with me, but I know he kept a lot of the worst things to himself. I'm totally persuaded that employment played a significant role in his route to drugs that finally ended his life. Mental nurse at the mental inpatient facility in a state prison, dealing with death row prisoners. An old family friend was a jail psychiatrist. Many times she canceled on dinner arrangements with us because she couldn't get rid of the scent of human that was tossed at her at work. And the amount of times she'd been advised to stay home because a scheme to murder her or to attack her had been unearthed or exposed. It didn't truly take home how hard the work was until I heard some of her, although small by contrast, experiences. She's an all-mental health psychiatrist now. She works with folks who attempt all in their ability to kill themselves. As safer as she feels in the new position, it's not any simpler by any stretch of the imagination. Caregiver. First, the racist. It's really hard to continue on your day taking care of someone who spits in your face and calls you disgusting while you're trying to help them wash up. Second, the way people simply die after you finally formed a connection with them and cared for them for months, and how soon that vacant bed gets filled. You don't receive any counseling or treatment, but you're expected to continue on normally with your work shift. Contact center rep. When my husband worked at a contact center for fraud claims, it made him terribly sad because he would have seniors phone in about fraud, generally grandchildren taking their money. And the system is so crooked that they usually can't legally do anything. And the grandparents are now broke. It took a big toll on his mental health, witnessing individuals weep about having no money to feed their children due to fraud. Fighting soldier. Nothing ruins the human mind like the persistent stress of fighting and being in conflict zones. I am in one of those odd jobs where you spend time in war zones or nearby, humanitarian relief, etc. But with a lot of stress, it is immensely upsetting. About 4 in 5 have PTSD or STS. I have noticed, despite demographics being so diverse, that there are things I have more in common with troops than those who have never been in a field. I also have a 2-for-1 bargain of those two illnesses. Definitely not number 1, but lawyer who practices family law. A close friend of mine handled it for a time. He remarked that all of his customers were just deep down furious and their anger and bitterness overrode their regular sense of reason. They won't listen to the attorneys very much and will act utterly crazily at times. I don't know whether it's the worst, but maybe. I'm a retired detective. In the latter portion of my employment, I was charged with leading our special investigations section. One of our tasks was computer crimes. 95% of them were SA media investigations involving minors, CP. To the layman, I trained and was certified in computer forensics. As a consequence, I spent many hours going through hundreds upon thousands of child SA photographs and videos. The boiling white wrath that would build up inside of me would demand an occasional pause to go smash a wall or other inanimate object. The other detectives outside of our confined lab became accustomed to the periodic outbursts by my colleagues' computer forensic examiners and myself. Most of the time I could take it, but occasionally particular actions or victims would ignite wrath in me that still affects me to this day, in spite of the necessary and frequent treatment for our examiners that was set by protocol. There is no atonement for adults who harm children. I am now in this situation, only I'm not an officer. Just a civilian working for my state's police agency in their lab. In reality, I work on child SA material cases alongside police who are not obligated to undertake this job. The great majority of child SA instances entail a cornucopia of victimization that happens as a direct consequence of such abuse. When you read about so many thousands of hours of evidence work on these cases, it's accurate. That's a genuine quantity. The task has left me haunted and melancholy. There's no way to avoid the influence it has on your mental health. I haven't been in therapy long, but I'm going to keep going.